I was watching some news show at some point today, and I saw some video from NBC television affiliate in San Diego, and I wasn't sure what I was looking at first. This is not an issue that I have focused a lot of attention on, um, and I'm remiss in not doing so. But this is the undocumented immigrant issue where it concerns children. Um, the backstory to this is that ever since the 80s, I mean, you can go back to the turn of the last century, but ever since the 80s, U.S. foreign policy, where it concerns Central America, has been one of destruction, death, torture. It just has. We've talked about this before. That's what the School of the Americas is all about, right down here in Columbus, Georgia, Fort Benning, to teach the fascist leaders of Central and South American countries during the 80s and 90s. Some of those governments have now been overthrown and replaced. But to teach them enhanced interrogation techniques to be used against their own people, as well as assassination squads, death. I mean, it was just horrible. And all of this was done to protect U.S. corporations. Catholic priests and nuns were as fair game as labor organizers and counter revolutionaries or revolutionaries who might wish to overthrow these fascist military dictatorships that the United States either installed or supported. People were slaughtered left and right. The death toll in Central America in the 80s probably exceeded 500,000. It's a statistic you and I will never know about. We just won't. But in that process, over a 30-year period, 40-year period, a 30-year period, Central America and in huge sections of Mexico too, by the way, were so totally destabilized, so totally turned into almost failed states, except for the fact that they were ruled by military dictatorships. The 99% in those countries were treated like dirt or worse, and if they protested, they were immediately executed. There's no such thing as trial, unless they were put in jails. And when they were put in jails, then they were sometimes taken up in helicopters and thrown out, without a parachute, of course, at 5,000 feet. And pregnant women, too, by the way. So, I mean, it's been a reign of U.S.-sponsored terror in Central America for the past 30 years and prior to that. But we're talking about the past 30. As a result of that, those cultures, those societies, those villages, those people have been so ripped to pieces and are such a state of poverty. Have you ever been to Central America? I've been to Nicaragua. We've been to parts of Mexico, up in the mountains of Mexico. We've been to Puerto Rico. We have seen the result of the kind of colonialism that the U.S. has imposed. And the colonialism that we impose, this is, I mentioned this several months ago, I think. When the Brits or the Dutch or the Portuguese or the French, when they would invade countries, when they were colonial empires, they would at least, I'm not excusing them, but I'm saying they would at least build a civil service network. They would set up courts, not courts based on European law, granted. They would set up courts and a civil service and post offices and hospitals and schools and so on and so forth. Now, this was part of colonialism. Again, I'm not defending it. I'm just saying that's what they did. We never did that. Never. Show me a country where we left behind a working, sustainable civil service system of any kind. The only ones who did anything positive were the Catholic nuns and the Catholic priests who went down there to try, and a few American, like the Venceremos Brigade that went to Cuba. Some Americans, young types who would go down and try to show people in villages how to build a well system. So, I mean, it's been a horror. A horror. We never left behind anything except poverty, destruction, and a 0.1% that ruled everything. And they were employed by the American corporations who caused the goddamn disasters to begin with. That's our legacy. Now you have families who they're into the second and third generation of this destabilization. They have to have jobs. They want to have food. They want to have shelter, medical care. In other words, the same goddamn things that every single American, North American wants. So they come here. They wouldn't have had to come here if we would have left their countries alone, left their societies alone, never imposed NAFTA. That was the velvet shrouded hammer that came down as the last blow. So now they show up. There are parents, families who are desperate to get their children out of this poverty, out of the slaughter, out of the misery. So they pay these stinking goddamn coyotes, these smugglers who will bring the kids north, knowing full well they don't give a rat's ass if these children die. They don't care, but they take the money, and the parents are so desperate. Think about this, damn it. Think about it. Would you take your grandchildren or your kids when they were 8, 9, 10 years old and hand them to a smuggler just to get them away from the poverty and the sickness and the disease that was brought about by the sons of bitches in the north, and send them to that country because they were told there would be jobs and for the adults, but medical care and nutrition and help for these kids? So what happened today? I mean, it happens all the time. There's a huge bus with 100 undocumented immigrants. They were sent, not of their own choosing. They were sent from Texas to a U.S. Customs and Border Protection processing facility in Murrieta, California. And when they got there, kids and adults and young people on the bus were met with people waving flags, American flags, and carrying signs that essentially said, "Get your stinking goddamn asses out of our country. Get out of here!" You know, somebody ought to go in New York Harbor and go out to Governor's Island and brick by brick, stone by stone, just take down the Statue of Liberty. Just take it down. And that inscription on the bottom, oh, get rid of it. It is such a goddamn joke. We spend 30 years backing dictatorships and murder squads and death squads and hit teams, and destabilize 7 countries in Central America. And now the people are desperate. And what do they meet when they come to the land of the free and the home of the lion, sons of bitch and hypocrites? They are met with what I saw from NBC San Diego. Women and children on that bus, some just infants. They were flown to San Diego's Lindbergh Field, and then they were put on buses and sent about 90 minutes north to Murrieta. One Murrieta resident met protesters outside the facility because she was angry to see the way the children were being treated. She said, "They're on our doorstep. Now we have to do something for them. They're children." But these goddamn teabag right-wing Republican sons of bitches couldn't care yet less. And you know what they'll do? Today's Tuesday. You know, Sunday, these sons of bitches will go to church and pray to their death cult fake God who said to them, "Blessed are the children, for such are the kingdom of heaven." Filthy, stinking, rotten hypocrites. There are no plans to release them in Murrieta, California. There is a detention facility there where the children are processed, and then they and their families are turned over to the ICE agents, immigration and enforcement agents. And you know what happens? Then they're sent back. Jesus Christ. Instead of welcoming, they couldn't even let them get off the bus to go to the toilet. So you welcome these kids and young people with cold drinks and sandwiches and toiletries? No. You wave your goddamn American flag in their face and you say, get out of here, you slimy sons of bitches.